Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Karu and this is my first color along slash tutorial of the year. I had a commenter ask me about how I plan and decide how to color complex detailed pages. And it so happened that one of my buddy colors this month is a fairly complicated page in Fairy Wonderland, and this page was chosen by my buddy color coloring underscore gen underscore 1975. And it's not a page I would have chosen myself, which honestly is great because I think that is one of the interesting parts about doing buddy colors, the chance to do pages that you yourself may not have chosen to do, possibly at all. So with that said, let's get right into it.
All right, so here's the page. As you can see on first impression, this is a pretty complex page. There's a lot of line art going on, a lot of little details, but when you start breaking it down, it isn't that complicated. It's a little book here just to write things down, but I've broken it down into elements first, and then I figured out colors. So first, the main elements in this image, you have the grasshoppers, which are the main subject, with the violins. You've got a bunch of paper lanterns, the moon in the back, the music notes, which at first I actually didn't see, but as I started studying the image, I could see that there's a bunch of little music notes all over the page. So that's an element. We have the branches, the leaves, the grass, basically the background elements. And finally, the motes of light that are all over this page. So our main sources of light here are going to be the paper lanterns and the moon. So given all the elements in this page, I decided to go with browns, greens, yellows, and reds. Mainly browns for the wooden objects, greens for all the grass and the grasshoppers, yellows and reds, honestly, both for the paper lanterns, and yellow probably incorporated into some of the grass and the grasshoppers. And then gold, because of the colors that I have here, mostly brown, green, and red, so they're all warm colors. I decided I'd use gold accents. I'll probably do the music notes in an actual gold gel pen or acrylic marker for the notes, just to give that hint of gold. I might, depending on how it looks, use gold accents to essentially white out the lines of the motes of light, or I might use a yellow acrylic marker. We'll see how that looks in the end. So that's me breaking down, that's my process, essentially with this page, of how I plan to color it. Now, where I start, I usually like to start with the biggest elements first, because it gives the biggest sense of achievement in these pages that are going to take more than one sitting. Like, I'm not going to be able to finish this in one go. So the biggest elements in this page that I can see are the background, the moon, the sky, and the tree, the branches. Now, I'm still not sure how I'm going to tackle the actual background. Given that it's all going to be in brown, green, yellow, warm colors, I don't want to use blue. So what I'm thinking is I'm probably going to go for a muted grayish, warm gray background, and I'm not sure yet, but I do think I want to have some halo glows from the other objects. So I might leave that for now, which leaves the tree and the moon. Of those two, again, the tree is going to be affected by the moon. I think a lot of the things in the foreground will be affected by the fact that there's moon and that there's the paper lantern. So there's going to be a lot of like yellow glow going on for the subjects. So I think it would make the most sense to start, to start with the moon. That way I have the biggest source of background lighting sketched out and colored. so that can inform my choices for the foreground. Given that, I also might then continue with the paper lanterns, since the paper lanterns, for the most part, will not be affected by the moonlight, since they're going to be giving off their own glow. So now that I have an idea of where I want to start, it's down to choosing colors. I am going to be using alcohol markers and then possibly some pencils for shading. Yeah, especially given that this has so many details and will probably use a lot of gradients, though I'm thinking there's going to be some elements that I may have to switch up what colors I have on the base just to make sure I can get that like rim lighting effect that I want. So let's start. Okay, so after looking at my colors, I have all the colors here for my markers. Unfortunately, I had to go to second page and I got this set afterwards, so it's not in the color coding. But I went for a warm gray. This is warm gray 140, which is this color down here, as the base for the moon. I might add some E280 as shading, but I think I'm going to base the whole thing in 140 first, and then we'll see about possibly adding some shading with markers. If not, I might just add some shading with pencils afterwards. All right, moon is done, looking very nice and pale. We're going to try E280 and see how that looks for shading. I'm not sure if it's going to be dark enough, but there is only one way to try. That does work pretty well. I'm not sure it's going to be as dark as I want it to. My one concern is that it might be a bit too on the gray side. But my other option was going to be warm gray, so I think this is going to be enough just to give that little bit of interest so the moon is not one big pale color. I'm going to start with all the obvious dark spots that have been drawn out for us. And I am going to add a bit of E20, 220, 200, yeah, 220 words. This one's kind of on the darker side, so I'm going to try to be careful not to add too much. It's a bit dark, but once it dries it should lighten up a bit. Kind of makes me want to add some more dark areas in the shadows, but I don't want to push it. I already think it's too dark, but yeah, we'll live with it. It's done. Doesn't matter. Once you have the whole picture colored, it will be less obvious. Right now it looks really dark because everything else is uncolored. Now, I said I wanted to do some rim lighting on the foreground elements from the moon and possibly to the lights. So I'm going to start doing that with the brown of the trees. Now, I don't want it to be too light. So I think what I'll do is I'll use the darkest color from the moon as the rim lighting. So we'll go with, I'm just going to pull that here. I almost want to use 763 as the main. That is potato brown. And then I'll probably shade it with pencils. Do I want a lighter color for the border? No, I think these two will work. All right, so we'll do the edges first. And for example, here, I'll do it too. Because this paper lantern is going to be giving a lot of light into this area here. That was grass. Oops. Technically the moon's not hitting the underside of this, but we're just gonna do it anyways. We do have some motes of light on here. It's fine. Hello, cat. She always has to be in the middle of things. All right, so now that I have the woodwork done, I also used the colorless blender to fix my little blender there. It's not perfect, but it'll do once I put the green on top. I actually might be using some of the warm gray yellow of the moon on that grass anyways, so I'm not too concerned with that. It does take off quite a bit of the color though. Okay, so we have only one major thing that is brown in this picture, and that is the violins. Now, I don't want to introduce too many different browns, so what I'm thinking of doing is I'm going to use brick brown for the main base, and then I'll bring in potato brown, which is the dark color of the wood here,
as the highlight color. That way I am incorporating the same brown that I have already on the page, but brick brown is a bit of a reddish, has a bit of a reddish undertone, but it goes well with potato brown, so these two will work well. It'll make them darker than the brown of the tree to make them different, but it will have that room lighting of potato brown just to make it all look the same. I am a bit concerned where the potato browns are going to mix, but I'm going to do shading on this, and this is going to be darker, so I'll bring in pencil shading to darken the wood behind this, and I think that'll be fine. Now there's a lot of little details on these that I am not going to be able to go around with alcohol marker. So what I'm thinking is I'll probably use a gold gel pen to go over the strings afterwards to bring them back. And that way I don't have to worry about not painting in these tiny little details. I can always bring them back with some gel pens. You'll see this looks really messy, but that's because I'm now going to go in with potato brown and color it. Oh, I forgot some stuff there. I'll just add a bit more here. Okay, there we go. And then I'll go over everything with the potato brown. I think I might leave some actual brighter highlights on the top edges. I do go over the dark part with the potato brown as well because they have a different undertone, and I want to make sure that it's all unified. And then use our next latest color just for the edge here. Okay, and then I think we're going to do a bit of this here. Kind of messy. And then potato brown. And we'll do the bottom side, but we'll leave some of the top for the lightest. I think it didn't record. Well, drats. All right, well, I do have one last one to do, so I guess we'll do that one. And I do this relatively messy with the first layer, with the darkest one, so that the potato brown can come through. This is wood after all. And especially since this one's like way in the background, it is so tiny. I do go with potato brown over what I've already colored, because potato brown has more of a yellow undertone and brick brown has more of a red undertone. So I want to mix those colors up. And we've left just the edges on the top. Okay, and there we go. Now I'm not bothered with the fact that the details are lost with the darker colors. It would be really hard to avoid them with markers. So what I'm going to do is going to go in with a gel pen to bring back the details, probably with the same gold I'm going to be using in other places, so that I can bring out the highlights that I need. And if necessary, I can always go in with an acrylic marker and bring some stuff back if I need some highlights. But I think this looks good so far.
I think that's all the browns in this picture. So now I have to decide on what color I'm going to work on next. Part of me wants to work on the paper lanterns so that I know what colors are going to be glowing off of the other objects before I color them. So I will pick some colors for the lanterns and then I'll be back. So far, we have used 5 markers. I will be going over this with pencils, so that will be adding more colors. But there we go. I think this is good for the first part, and then next up will be the lanterns. I have chosen my colors, and they are all from the same set somehow. Oh, not all. All but one. There we go. So I have these 3 are going to be more of a orange reddish tone because I want to have some variety to these lanterns. And then I chose from a very light yellow to a dark marigold for the other lanterns. I'll be switching up which ones I use for some of the lanterns just so that they're not all the same brightness, especially since some of them overlap. So I'm going to start with the very different ones because I need to figure out how I'm balancing this. So I'm thinking that I'm going to do this one here, and this one in the reddish orange so that I have them spread around the page. I'm going to start with the darkest color around the edge because the light is coming from the center. Now I'm going to leave the top of this one because it looks like it's open. And then we're going to go around the edge again. I'm not worried again about the decorations. I'll worry about that later. And then we're going to go there. Okay. Then the next color, and bring that in. You'll probably have to smooth that out with some pencil. Not liking how that blend came through. We're probably going to have to wait till this dries to see exactly how it's blending. Okay, well, let's stop filming at one point. I had a bit of an error here and I had to put a lot of marker down to fix it. I did the darkest, oh shoot. Well, it's a good thing that's a pomegranate. As you can see, I put a lot of it down. I put the darkest one where the light went, so I went over it with the light color to fix it, and yeah, that was a lot. Wow, even bled through to the next page. Oh boy. Okay, well, it's fine. It's fine. That's a pomegranate. It's going to be red. That's going to disappear. No one's going to know. It's fine.